We're recapping the first day of the Giants off-season program on Monday. Plus, I'm going to play What Would I Do? Based on your scenarios that were proposed to me. What would I do in the draft later this month? That's coming up next on the LockedOn Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On podcast family, your team every day. My name is Patricia Traina, and it's happy to have you with us on this Tuesday. It's not a Twitter Tuesday, but I'll outline the schedule for you in a little bit later on in the show. What we are doing today, though, is I'm going to give you a recap of some of the top storylines from Monday. Monday was the start of the Giants off-season conditioning program, so we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to go to the main part of the show, which is which finally I'm getting to it this week, and that is what would I do? So you guys, I asked you guys and gals to send me some scenarios. Would I do point A, point B, point C, and so forth, and why? So that's what we're going to do. That's going to be the highlight of today's show. And if you're looking for Twitter Tuesday, by the way, the plan is to move it to Thursday. So you still have plenty of time to get your questions in. Information is in the show notes. So if you have a question, get those into me and I will answer them for Thursday's show. And as always, folks, thank you so much for making the Locked On Giants podcast your first listen of the day. Or if you are watching on YouTube, your first watch of the day. Really appreciate you guys and gals. And I want to thank y'all also, for those of you who watch on YouTube, for making the Locked On Giants podcast one of the most watched podcasts. We have one of the longest watch times, average watch times. And I think I've been I've come in first place the last few weeks. So thank you for that. I really do appreciate you hanging in there and watching, and I remain committed to bringing you guys and gals the best possible programming. So that said, let's get into today's programming. All right, so we got some three main things that I want to talk about. The first one is the Giants had to go there. All right, they had to go to their last resort. What am I talking about? Well, General Manager Joe Schoen spoke about not wanting to have to kick the can down the road, not wanting to have to restructure contracts unless he absolutely had to. Well, folks, there was just no way he was going to avoid it. So even if they trade James Bradberry, which as of this recording, they have not done so, it is expected that they will at some point, they still wouldn't have had enough to sign their draft class. Plus, they wouldn't have had enough to operate for the coming years. All right, so what the Giants have done is they converted $8.965 million of Adoree Jackson's contract into a signing bonus, adding a voidable year to create $5.98 million in cap space. So it's not enough. Coming into this, the Giants had less than $1 million in cap space before this transaction was made. This gives them a little bit more, but it's just not enough to meet the $12.5 million or so that they need to sign their rookie class. And so they've got some work to do still with the salary cap. So we'll see what happens with the James Bradberry contract. There's no way that contract is going to stand on the books. They're going to have to do something with it, whether they trade it, whether they restructure it. I'm not sure what they're going to do, but something's got to be done. And then I'm still not convinced that's going to be enough. They might have to do some more work on their cap. So we'll see how it comes out. So, all right, another piece of news to come out of Monday's start of the offseason conditioning program. Daniel Jones was one of the players that they featured on the conference call with reporters. And Jones basically said, quote, "I'll be ready to go." All right. So Jones is still rehabbing from his season-ending neck injury. I don't believe he has been medically cleared yet. I don't know that for a fact yet, but you know what? He still has time. There's no contact until August. So even if he's not, there's still time for him to get there. So Daniel Jones, confident that he will be able to be back in time for the start of the season, and certainly for the summer, which he's going to need to be available for, especially with a new offense in place here. Daniel, also talking to reporters, was asked about John Mara's quote made back in January, in which John Mara said, "We've done everything possible to screw this kid up." And Daniel, he took the high road. He could have sat there and he could have, shook his head, agreed. He could have pointed fingers. Some of his contemporaries have done that in the past. I'm not going to name names, obviously, because that just, who I'm talking about. But Daniel took full responsibility. He said, "I take full responsibility for how I played. We haven't won enough games. We haven't scored enough points. We haven't done things well enough. So I take responsibility for that." Now, I know some of you, when I mentioned that on Twitter, said, "Well, what do you expect him to say?" He could have said nothing. He could have said, "I appreciate Mr. Mara's candidness." He could have said, "He's absolutely right. They haven't been fair to me." He could have gone a lot of different ways with this, but Daniel's no dummy. He knows that, what's the point in saying that? So good for Daniel in taking the high road in this matter. All right. One additional note real quick. Speaking of injuries, Blake Martinez and Sterling Shepard were on the call as well. Both of them, of course, coming off of injuries. Blake Martinez basically doesn't have a timetable as to when he's going to be back, nor does Sterling Shepard. Both, Martinez was injured, the ACL injury early in the season, Shepard later in the season with a ruptured Achilles. So no timetable as to when those guys will be back. My guess is that Martinez should be ready to go by training camp. I don't think Shepard will be ready to go. I think Shepard will probably be on the PUP list, not just for training camp, but also to start the season. That's what I think will happen with him. But who knows? Because, with Achilles injuries, nowadays you can come back from them a lot quicker. So it is certainly conceivable that Shepard will be back a lot faster than anybody anticipates. All right, those are the main storylines. We also talked a little bit about, the injuries, the fact that the Giants have been one of the most injured teams in the NFL. Coach Brian Daboll was on the call. Super guy, by the way. I love Brian Daboll. He's very personable. They're basically doing meetings. They're having meetings, looking into different ways to stay healthy, not lead the league in injuries and whatnot. And, no details have emerged just yet, but I suspect, and I have no proof of this, but it's going to be with how they practice. There's you can practice hard, but you also have to know when to dial it back. And I just, I asked Coach Daboll about dialing it back and adjusting along the way, or is it put your foot on the gas pedal and just keep going? And he basically said, "Look, we will adjust as we need to, just like we would adjust each week for a game plan." So we'll see what they come up with. We'll see if they are able to keep these guys healthier because, like I said, the Giants, they've been in the top 10 injury league-wide in injuries since 2017. It's just, not a stat you want to lead the league in. So, all right, folks, coming up, we are going to play What Would I Do? Your draft scenarios, what I would do and why, coming up next. All right, Giant fans, we have more coming up on today's LockedOn Giants podcast. But first, wait a minute. You're probably wondering, if you're watching YouTube, why am I wearing sunglasses? Well, that's because I am super excited about the newest sponsor here at the LockedOn Network, Shady Rays. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that gives you the features of $200 sunglasses for a fraction of the price. That means you get polarized lenses, well-constructed durable frames, and premium high-end finishes. Also, something you won't find anywhere else is Shady Rays' insane protection program. Shady Rays includes a lost and broken protection on every pair. They will send you a brand new pair if you lose them, no matter what happened. Give them a try, and if you don't love them, you'll pay nothing. It's as simple as that. Plus, for every sale they make, 10 meals are donated to fight hunger in America when you shop with Shady Rays. Exclusively for our listeners, head to shadyrays.com and use the code LOCKEDON to get 50% off 2 or more pair of polarized glasses. And by the way, did I mention that they are super quick? I ordered mine on Friday, I believe it was, and they arrived on Monday. So they are really, really quick with shipping. And I was just so thrilled to get them. And I can't wait to wear them actually when it's sunny out. Right now it's nighttime, but that I'm wearing these. But just had to show you these sunglasses. They're really, really cool. Anyway, that code is locked on, and they have all different types of styles for both men and women. So check them out. There's sure to be a pair that will strike your fancy, meet your style needs. Again, head on over to shadyrays.com, use this promo code locked on, and grab your new shades today. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the LockedOn Giants podcast. Patricia Traina here with you, and we're going to play What Would I Do? WWID or WWPD. What would Pat do? Okay. So I asked you on the YouTube channel to give me your scenarios. I asked you on Twitter to give me your scenarios. So I have them written down on my notepad here. I also have what I would do and why. So let's go ahead and roll through some of these scenarios. All right. From the YouTube channel, the community channel, Big Blue 4 asks, Icky at number 5, and either Gardner, Walker, or Hamilton at number 7. All right. So Icky is Ikwonu, the offensive tackle at number 5. And then a choice of defensive players, Trayvon Walker, Sauce Gardner, the cornerback, or safety Kyle Hamilton at number 7. You know what? I'm going to probably go with Sauce Gardner in that instance. I believe the defensive end class, the pass rusher class, is deep enough to where I could potentially get a decent talent, maybe a borderline first round talent early in the second round. All right. So would I like to have Walker? Yes, but I won't exactly lose sleep if I don't get him. You look at what Don Martindale has said about his defense and how he would prefer to have cornerbacks, as many cornerbacks as he can get. And he talked about the type of cornerbacks he's looking for: cover corners, guys with length, and Sauce Gardner has that. Kyle Hamilton, by the way, the safety out of Notre Dame, excellent player. And, you can certainly make a case that the Giants need a safety, especially after moving on from Logan Ryan. However, if given my druthers between Sauce and Hamilton, I think I'm probably going to go with Sauce. Now, spoiler alert, on tomorrow's show, I have Eric Crocker, who is with Locked On NFL Draft and Locked On 49ers. And I asked him about Sauce, and I didn't come away with the impression that he was ultra high on him. And I'll let him explain why. It's nothing within the kid's game per se. It has more to do with, the question I think I asked him was Stingley or Sauce, and he went with Stingley. And I'll save the response for tomorrow, just so you have a reason to tune in. But I thought it made a lot of sense. Doesn't mean that Sauce can't be or won't be a number 1 pick, but sometimes you wonder if maybe, these guys, their draft status is a result more of fan and media pumping them up than it is about anything else. So we'll see where Sauce ultimately ends up. I personally wouldn't mind having him. I think he's a good cornerback, but I don't know necessarily that he'll even fall to the Giants at 7 if he's, as good as everybody thinks he is. So, okay. Also from the YouTube community, Andrew, let's see, this was Andrew C. who writes Icky or Evan at number 5. All right, so it's again Ekwonu or Evan Neal, both offensive tackles. Ooh, I'm going with Evan Neal, I think, if given a choice there. I know NFL Network draft analyst Daniel Jeremiah called Ekwonu a slam dunk. To me, my way of thinking, it just looks like Evan Neal might be more of a complete, plug and play player. It's not to say again that Ike Ekwonu won't be ready to rock and roll, but if the Giants go with the safe pick, I think Evan Neal is probably going to be that guy. So right now, until further notice, until I hear differently or have reason to believe differently, I'm going to say Evan Neal is probably going to be the Giants pick at number 5. So yeah, that's who I would pick. I mean, look, regardless, I think number 5, the Giants have to come away with an offensive tackle. And I've had people actually, on Twitter say, well, would the Giants consider trading number 5 with this team or that team? Folks, look, how many years have we been griping about the offensive line and how it needs to be fixed? Let's get it fixed. Let's stop messing around here. Take care of it once and for all. My feeling is take a tackle at number 5. If you trade down and say, okay, I'm going to wait till spot number 7, and you could lose out on the guy you want, I mean, as far as I can tell, and, I'm just spitballing here. New Orleans needs a tackle. I'm sure, Carolina could probably use some offensive line help. I'm sure there are other teams that could use some offensive line help that might look to trade up, maybe even swap with Carolina. Who knows? But the point is I wouldn't mess around here. Go get the tackle you want, especially if one of those top 3 goes off the board in the first 4 picks. Don't mess around. Seriously, you start being cute, you're going to lose out on the guy you want. And I just don't want to see that happen. I want that offensive line fixed once and for all. And I don't think I'm alone when I say that. So, all right, folks, we've got more What Would Pat Do? What Would I Do? Scenarios. These are coming in from Twitter. We're going to get to those in just a moment. All right, Giant fans, we have more coming up on today's LockedOn Giants podcast. But first, Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, but without the calories and without the sugar. Most Built Bars contain about 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein, and they taste great. Built Bar offers 9 amazing flavors in nut and nut-free variety, plus a rotating limited time offering of different flavors that changes every so many weeks. Head on over to BuiltBar.com and see what their current flavor lineup looks like and use our special promo code LOCKED15 to save 15% off your first order. That's code LOCKED15, LOCKED15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. All right, welcome back, Giant fans, to the LockedOn Giants podcast. You've got Patricia Traina here with you. And again, thank you for making us your first listen of the day, or if watching on YouTube, your first watch of the day. And before I get into the What Would Pat Do, or What Would I Do, scenarios received via Twitter, just real quick on the rest of the week, I mentioned I have Eric Crocker. He's going to be with me on tomorrow's show, Wednesday. Then we're going to do Twitter Thursday. And then on Friday, we have scheduled a live, it's actually 6 round. I'm going to say 7 round because the draft is 7 round, but the Giants only have 6 picks. But we're doing a live 6 round mock draft, Giants only, with special guest Nick Filato. Nick Filato has been writing the draft prospect profiles over on Giants Country. He's been doing a great job with them. I'm going to put Nick on the clock, have him make his picks. I'll probably chime in a little bit, and you can watch that live. We're going to probably start that. I think that's going to kick off around noon. So I'll post the details. I'll update you on that, but I think it's going to start at noon on Friday, and should be a lot of fun. So I hope you will check that out. All right, let's get back to the What Would I Do scenarios. And these came in from Twitter. The first one comes from Huckleberry Nacho, who writes, of the following injured players, which one would I gamble on in the second round? And he lists Ojabo, Jameson, Williams, or Stingley, if any of those guys were to fall down to the second round. All right, this one to me is a no-brainer. I would go with Ojabo. Achilles injuries nowadays, people come back fairly quickly from them. And I think the Giants, my guess is they're going to be able to maybe scheme some of that pass rush if they don't come away with a defensive, a stud defensive pass rusher. I think the priority might just be on the back end of the defense, making sure that they have, guys that can play man coverage. As I mentioned before, I do think the defensive pass rush class is very deep. If the Giants want to, take somebody, my feeling is, if I'm being completely honest with you, though, is I want my guys taken in the first 3 rounds. I want to get them on the field and get them experience. I don't want to have to redshirt any of them if I can help it, which I think the Giants might have to do for part of the year with Ojabo. That being said, since the question was, which of those 3 would I pick? Ojabo would be my guy. So, all right. Knight who says Nye asks about the following scenarios. O-line and Sauce, O-line and Hamilton, or O-line and KT? KT being Kayvon Thibodeau. Which one would I pick? All right. Wow. I don't think I would do O-line and Hamilton. Again, no disrespect to Kyle Hamilton. If I'm going to do a defensive back, I'm probably going to look for a cornerback in that spot. Thibodeau, I like him as a pass rusher. A lot's going to depend on how he interviewed and how his visits went with the Giants. I think they might have met with him. I know they went out to scout him. Joe Shane went out to scout him at Oregon's pro day. I'm going to go with O-line and Sauce in that scenario. I've mentioned this before on the show. I want to get that defensive backfield up to snuff. I want to make sure I got guys back there that can cover like blankets. And, pass rushers, we can always add in the second round. This is a deep class, maybe even the third round. So I don't think, I think I would focus more on cornerback in that spot as opposed to pass rusher. So that's what I would do there. Okay, we have one more. This has to do with a trade. This is from Bobby L., who says, would you trade the following with Houston? Picks 5 and 7 for picks 3, 13, and 68. Nope, I'm not trading up. All right, I understand why you might want to trade up. I don't think I'm trading up here. You're trading up 2 spots from 5 to 3, but then you're dropping from 7 to 13. You're going down 6 spots. You're picking up an extra, it looks like an extra third, I believe. No, I don't think I do that. I don't trade up in this instance. I think the player that I'm looking for, one of those offensive tackles, will come down to me at number 5. So I don't do that. Now, would I trade down from number 7? Absolutely. I don't think, matter of fact, I can sit here and tell you that as I record this, I do not think the Giants are going to keep that number 7 pick. I'd be very surprised if they do. I think it makes sense to trade that pick and to trade down and maybe pick up some additional assets. Now, what's interesting is I got a lengthy letter, I guess, as part of the upcoming Twitter Thursday from a reader who just went on a total rant saying, I'm so sick of this, because of the cap mismanagement, the Giants can't afford, to have the 5th and 7th picks, and they've got to trade one away, yada, yada, yada. If the Giants trade the 7th pick, they're still going to have another first round pick in this draft. I don't think they're going to trade completely out of the first round. So you're not talking a huge amount of a difference. Of course, it depends on how far down they go. It could be a difference of 2 million, a million, depending on how far down they go in a trade. But I understand the frustration with the cap situation. It's really bad. I don't have to tell you guys that. It is really bad. And there is a lot of work to be done still to fix that cap. My concern, though, is how much more can they cut? Because right now they're cutting to the bone. And I'm fairly certain they're going to have to do something with Leonard Williams or Kenny Galladay's contract. I don't know how they're going to make it. I mean, they're going to have to do something with it. And will it mean that they're going to trade away some of those draft picks that they have on day 3? I sure hope not, because that supposedly is where Joe Shane shines, with picking up day 3 draft picks. And that's where you can get guys who are relatively inexpensive. So, yeah, folks, the fallout continues, unfortunately, of some poor business decisions made last year by the Giants management. And gosh, I hope, moving forward, whoever Joe Shane designates to manage the salary cap does a better job, because, I go back and I look at some of the mechanisms that Buffalo put in to manage some of those bigger contracts. And I sit there and I say, gosh, why didn't the Giants think of those? So we'll see what ends up happening. Either way, something to keep an eye on, I think, after the draft is done, is will Joe Shane make some additional changes in the scouting department, the personnel department? If he's going to do that, that would be the time to do it. So I'm curious to see how that all plays out. And I'm curious to see what they do in this draft. I mean, we're getting closer. The rumors are going to start to hopefully clarify, solidify, and we'll have a better idea what the Giants are going to do. And it should be fun. We will make sure we cover the topic and keep you informed as best as possible. So, all right, folks, that's going to do it for us here at the LockedOn Giants podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, making us your first listen of the day or your first watch of the day. Again, Eric Crocker, co-host of LockedOn NFL Draft and the LockedOn 49ers podcast. He will be with me tomorrow. We'll be talking draft, some really, really good stuff from Crocky, former NFL defensive back, by the way. And I hope you will join me for that show. So until then, everybody, have a great one.